My family told everyone I was dead until my twin sister got sick and needed my organs. At the family meeting, my uncle said, "She doesn't deserve a second chance." I looked him in the eye and said, "Neither do you." That's when I dropped the envelope and walked out, but not before they read what was inside. I found out I was dead last year, not actually dead. Obviously, I was still very much breathing, still going to work every day, still paying my bills. But according to my family, I had died 15 years ago in a tragic car accident. At least, that was the story they told everyone. I might never have known if an old friend hadn't tried to look me up online. He sent me a screenshot from a memorial page, complete with a photo of me as a teenager and a short obituary. Darren Walsh, beloved son and brother, was taken from us too soon in a fatal car crash. May he rest in peace. I stared at it for a long time. The words blurred together, but I kept reading them over and over, feeling a strange numbness creep in. I should have been angry. I should have picked up the phone and demanded an explanation. But the truth was, I hadn't spoken to my family in over a decade. I had left them behind and they had erased me. Maybe that was easier for them. Maybe they had wanted it to be true. I didn't reach out. I let the dead stay dead. But then, a year later, they found me. It started with a voicemail from my mother. "Darren, we need to talk. It's about Mallory. It's urgent. You'll be at the house this Saturday at noon." Not a request, a demand. I almost deleted it, but I didn't. Instead, I sat with it, letting her voice pull me back to a time when those orders had ruled my life. I could still remember the way she used to say my name when she was disappointed, flat, tired, like she had already given up on me before I even had the chance to explain myself. For a long time, I told myself I didn't care, that I had made peace with it, but I guess a part of me had always wanted to know. So I went. The Walsh house hadn't changed. It was the same two-story colonial in Charleston, pristine and stately with its white shutters and perfectly manicured lawn. The kind of house that looked warm and inviting from the outside, but inside every room was cold. I stood on the porch for a moment, feeling the weight of it settle into my bones. Then I knocked. The door opened almost immediately. My mother stood there, dressed in one of her neat pastel cardigans, her hair perfectly styled as if she had been expecting company. For a second, she just stared at me, her expression unreadable, then she stepped aside and gestured for me to come in. The living room was full. My father was sitting in his usual chair by the fireplace, his jaw tight. My Uncle Ron was in the corner, arms crossed, watching me with the same disapproving glare I remembered from childhood. A few aunts and cousins I hadn't seen in years were scattered around, shifting awkwardly in their seats. And then there was Mallory. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her skin was pale, her frame too thin, and there was a tiredness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. But even now, she held herself like she was above all of this, above me. I didn't sit. No one greeted me. No one said it was good to see me after all these years. Instead, my father cleared his throat and said, "Mallory needs a kidney transplant." Just like that. No preamble. No hesitation. As if I had just been summoned to fill a role they had reserved for me. I stared at him, then at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "She's on the transplant list," my mother said, finally. "But time isn't on her side. Your match. The best match, actually." It took me a second to understand what she was saying. They had already checked. Somehow, they had gotten access to my medical records, ran the tests without my knowledge, and now they were sitting here waiting for me to nod and agree like a good son, like a good brother. I let out a quiet, disbelieving laugh. "You declared me dead, and now you want my organs." A heavy silence filled the room. Uncle Ron was the first to speak. He scoffed, shaking his head. "She doesn't deserve a second chance." I turned to look at him, trying to process what he had just said. "Excuse me, you left," he said. "You cut yourself off from his family. You made your choice, and now you think you can just show up and be some kind of savior." He shook his head. "You don't deserve that." I felt something bitter rise in my throat. "I don't deserve it," I repeated. "I don't deserve it." Mallory shifted in her seat. "Darren, please. I know we haven't talked," but I held up a hand. Let me ask you something, Mallory. My voice was steady, too steady. Did you even try to find me before this? Before you needed something from me? She didn't answer, and that told me everything I needed to know. I reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. You know, I had a feeling this might happen, I said. So I brought something for you all. I tossed it onto the table. My mother hesitated before picking it up. She pulled out the papers inside and started reading. At first, her expression was blank. Then it shifted. Her lips parted. Her hands started shaking. She passed it to my father without a word. I watched his face as he read. He went pale. His mouth pressed into a thin line. One by one, the envelope made its way around the room. I saw my Aunt Deborah's hand fly to her mouth. I saw my cousin Brenda's eyes widen in horror. I saw Uncle Ron's face darken. Mallory read it last. She barely made it halfway before she let the paper slip from her fingers. This can't be real, she whispered. Oh, it's real, I said. That's a legal affidavit stating that I was cut out of the family estate, that my death was faked so you wouldn't have to split the inheritance with me when Grandpa died. You all made sure of that. No one spoke. I turned to my uncle. You said Mallory doesn't deserve a second chance? You're right. Neither do you. The room was silent. No one moved. No one tried to stop me as I turned and walked toward the door. I didn't slam it on my way out, but I wanted to. I walked out of that house without looking back, but the weight of it followed me. The sun was blinding as I stepped outside, a sharp contrast to the suffocating air inside. My hand was shaking. I shoved them into my pockets and focused on breathing, on the sound of my boots crunching against the pavement as I made my way to my car. I sat behind the wheel, gripping it so tightly my knuckles turned white. My chest aches, not with regret, not with sadness, but with something harder to name, something between fury and exhaustion. 15 years. 15 years of silence, of pretending they didn't exist only for them to pull me back when they needed something from me. Not to apologize, not to make things right, just to take. I should have known better than to come back. I should have driven straight home, cut them off for good, left the past buried where it belonged, but I didn't. I sat there, staring at the house at the pristine front porch where my mother had once scolded me for getting dirt on my shoes. I watched the curtains shift as someone inside peeked out, probably checking if I was still there. And then before I even knew what I was doing, I pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts, past coworkers, and old friends until I landed on a name I hadn't thought about in years. Dennis Calloway. He was the lawyer I had worked with years ago when I first found out about the obituary. He had helped me get access to the legal records and had been the one to confirm that my family had declared me dead, not by mistake, but by design. I pressed the call. It rang twice before he answered. Darren, his voice was groggy. I glanced at the clock. I had no idea what time zone he was in now. Sorry if it's late, I said. There was a pause, then a sigh. I take it you saw them. I saw them. Another pause. How bad was it? I exhaled through my nose, gripping the wheel tighter. Worse than I expected. He didn't ask me to elaborate. What do you want to do? He asked instead. That was the question, wasn't it? What do I want to do? I should have walked away. I had nothing to prove to them, but something inside me wouldn't let it go. I had spent my whole life letting them push me aside, erase me, take what they wanted without ever looking back. Maybe it was time I took something from them. I leaned my head back against the seat and closed my eyes. I need you to give me everything you can on the estate, I said finally. Every financial record, every legal document. If they thought they could bury me, I want to know what else they buried. Dennis didn't hesitate. I'll get started. I hung up and dropped the phone into the passenger seat. Inside the house, the curtains shifted again. They had no idea what was coming. I drove for hours without a destination, letting the highway stretch out ahead of me, of the tires drowning out my thoughts. Every time I tried to push the conversation out of my mind, it came crawling back. My father's stony silence, my mother's tight-lipped avoidance, Mallory's weak attempt at playing the victim, and Uncle Ron sitting there like a judge passing a sentence, deciding who did and didn't deserve a second chance. I gritted my teeth. They had no right. They had buried me, written me out of their lives, told the world I was dead. And for what? To keep a bigger slice of money they hadn't even earned? To make it easier to explain why their perfect daughter got everything while their disappointment of son got nothing? I shouldn't have been surprised. I wasn't. But knowing something and feeling it in your bones were two different things. I pulled into a roadside diner just outside of Savannah, needing something: coffee, food, an excuse to stop moving. The place was nearly empty, just a couple of truckers at the counter and an older waitress refilling their cups. I slid into a booth near the back, running a hand down my face. A steaming mug landed in front of me before I even ordered. "Rough night?" the waitress asked. I glanced up. She was in her 50s with tired eyes and a name tag that read Jolene. I huffed out something that was almost a laugh. "You could say that." She topped off another table's coffee, then came back. "You look like a man with a lot on his mind." I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting the warmth sink into my fingers. "Something like that." She didn't push, just gave me a knowing nod. "Well, coffee's on the house. Whatever it is, hope you figure it out." I didn't know why that small kindness made my chest tighten, but it did. I ate without tasting my food, staring out the window at the neon lights reflecting off the rain-slick pavement. I could have sat there all night lost in my own head, but my phone buzzed. "Dennis," I swallowed then answered. "Yeah. You're not gonna believe this," he said. I straightened, muscles tensing. "Try me." There was a rustling of papers on the other end. So I started digging through the estate records looking for anything that might explain why they declared you dead, and, well, I found something: a beat of silence. "Your grandfather left you everything, Darren." The words didn't register at first. I blinked. "What?" Dennis sighed. "His will. He left his entire estate to you. The house, the investments, the savings, everything." I sat back, gripping the edge of the table. "That doesn't make sense." "Sure it does," Dennis said. "Maybe he saw the way they treated you. Maybe he wanted to make sure you got out." A pause. "But here's the thing. The will was never executed. Your parents contested it. And by the time it should have gone to probate, you were dead." I finished for him. A bitter laugh escaped me. They hadn't just erased me. They had stolen from me. "Darren," Dennis said carefully, "I don't know what you want to do with this, but you have a case. A real one. If you wanted to, you could fight this." I exhaled slowly, the weight of it settling deep into my gut. I could fight. I could make them answer for what they did. For the first time in years, I had leverage, and I wasn't sure I wanted to walk away from it. I sat in that booth long after my plate had gone cold, staring at the grainy surface of the table as Dennis' words echoed in my head. "They stole from you." I knew it shouldn't have surprised me. After all, they had lied to the entire world about my existence, rewritten history as if I had never mattered. But somehow this was worse. It was calculated, deliberate. I gripped my coffee mug, my fingers flexing around the ceramic. My grandfather, Arthur Walsh, had been one of the few people in that family who actually gave a damn about me. He was quiet, reserved, but I could still remember the way he used to slip me extra cash when my father wasn't looking, how he'd take me fishing when I was a kid, teaching me how to tie knots, and go to fish while Mallory stayed home. Too bored to bother. "Don't let them make you small," he had told me once, his voice low so my father wouldn't hear. "You deserve to take up space in this world, Darren. Don't let them steal that from you," and yet they had. They had stolen everything he left me. A slow burn ignited in my chest, the kind that started deep and simmered, spreading like wildfire. I needed proof. I tossed a couple of bills on the table and slid out of the booth, my movements tight and controlled. Jolene, the waitress, gave me a look as I passed. "Take care of yourself, hon." I barely nodded as I pushed through the door and stepped into the humid night air. I needed to go back. By the time I pulled up in front of my parents' house, it was past midnight. Most of the lights were off, but the porch light was still on. They were waiting for me. I got out of the car, the air thick with the scent of wet grass and salt from the nearby harbor. As I walked up the steps, my father opened the door. He didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, he looked like he had been expecting it. Darren, his voice was steady calm, like he was still the one in control. Come inside. I stepped past him without a word. The house was quieter now, emptier. My mother was sitting stiffly on the couch, hands folded in her lap. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. Mallory wasn't there. Where is she? I asked. My mother blinked. Who? I gave her a sharp look. Mallory. My father shut the door behind me. She's resting, he said smoothly. She's had a long day. I bet she had. I walked further into the living room, my eyes scanning the space. It was exactly as I remembered. Ornate rugs. Bookshelves filled with expensive hardcovers that no one ever read. The old grandfather clock that had been there since I was a kid. It was like stepping into a museum exhibit of my childhood. I turned to face them, crossing my arms. I know. My mother shifted slightly. Know what? I'll let the silence stretch. Let them feel the weight of it. I know about the will, I said finally. There it was. The barely perceptible stiffening of my father's posture. The quick flicker of my mother's eyes toward him before she composed herself. They had spent years crafting their version of the truth, but they weren't ready for this moment. My father exhaled through his nose. Darren, this isn't something we should discuss like this. Like what? I cut in. Face to face. My mother pursed her lips, still refusing to look directly at me. You don't understand the full picture. Then help me understand, I said, my voice dangerously even. She hesitated, her fingers tightening in her lap. My father was the one who spoke. Your grandfather was not well when he wrote that will, he said. His mind was slipping. He wasn't thinking clearly. He made an irrational decision, and we had to step in to fix it. I let a sharp laugh. Fix it? You mean steal from me? His jaw twitched. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I took a step closer. You faked my death to cover your tracks. That's not dramatic. That's criminal. My mother stood abruptly, smoothing the front of her blouse as if she could iron out the tension in the room. Darren, you left, she said. Her voice clipped. You disappeared. No calls. No letters. We had no way of knowing if you were even alive. I stared at her. You never looked for me. Silence. She swallowed. I shook my head. Don't lie to me again. My father sighed heavily, rubbing his temple. Darren, what do you want? I looked between them at the people who'd spent years pretending I didn't exist, the people who had rewritten history to serve themselves. I want a lot of things. I wanted my grandfather back. I wanted to never have set foot in this house again. I wanted to see the look on their faces when everything they had stolen came crumbling down. But most of all, I wanted them to know they had one. I smiled. I want what's mine. My father's face hardened. You don't deserve it. There it was. The truth lay bare. I tilted my head. And you do? Neither of them answered. I stepped back, adjusting my jacket. Dennis will be in touch. My mother's lips parted slightly. You wouldn't, I would, I said. And I will. I turned and walked toward the door. My father didn't try to stop me. My mother didn't beg. They had already buried me once. They just hadn't expected me to crawl out of the grave. I didn't look back as I stepped outside. The night air was thick with humidity, clinging to my skin as I walked toward my car. My hands were steady now. No more shaking. No more second-guessing. They had stolen from me. They had rewritten history to erase me. And now I was going to burn their carefully crafted reality to the ground. Dennis worked fast. Within a week, he had compiled every legal document tied to my grandfather's estate, the original will, the fraudulent amendments, the records of my supposed death, the money trails, everything. It was worse than I expected. Not only had my parents forged legal documents to cut me out, but they had also drained the estate dry over the years. My grandfather's wealth, the house, the investments, it had all been funneled into their accounts, spent on luxury cars, country club memberships, vacations to Europe. They had lived lavishly off stolen money, all while pretending I didn't exist. But the most damning evidence? A signed affidavit from a witness. One of my father's former law associates, Paul Grayson,